Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kaliouby, and it's been a great pleasure to meet with you. I just wanted to get your insights on innovation, the organizational culture, and also about the humanizing technology and the emotional intelligence. Very impressed by your work on Affectiva and also the journey that you have come across as a women entrepreneur, the challenges you faced. So in the next couple of minutes, I just wanted to share your experience with our audience on your journey. So let's start with your insights on innovation.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for being part of the Harvard Business Analytics program. One of the things that struck me through this program is every time we talk about how do we bring more AI into organizations and how do we build AI first companies, it always falls back to the culture and to the people. How do you bring people on board, right? How do you, as a leadership team, I think it really has to come from the leadership team. The leadership has to be committed to implementing AI across the organization. So culture really matters. And in my own work, I've pioneered the field of artificial emotional intelligence. You know, when you look at human intelligence, your IQ matters, right? But your emotional intelligence matters even more. People who have higher EQs or emotional quotients tend to be better leaders. They're more persuasive. They can motivate people. And I believe that that's going to be true especially true with more AI as well. Kind of playing more roles in our lives.
So from an awareness perspective, how people are taking that into effect, because they have their sustaining business operations that they need to take care of. Now, if you need to form a team and then focus on AI, there's always a sponsorship, there is always a funding required. So as a leader, for having been there, done this, what will be your advice to folks who wanted to implement some sort of a AI solution to get the best?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important that companies and leaders acknowledge that the folks who implement AI in their organizations are going to be far ahead than companies that don't, right? And it's going to show in top line, but it's also going to show in terms of cost reduction across organizations. So AI is inevitable, it's happening, kind of get with the program, right? If you're in a position of influence, then I think it's important to align stakeholders. I always find that starting with low-hanging opportunities, maybe a proof of concept or a pilot project that shows the value, that's really smart because you can take it to the table and say, here, I tried this, here were the results. So it does involve a lot of communication and evangelism. You have to keep selling the vision and the idea.
And you got sponsorship, you got some funding, now let's go to the team.
Mm-hmm.
How much it matters to have a great team. There are two aspects: intelligent team, collaborative team. Your thoughts?
Both. You need both. You need. I think the teams that I've seen work best are the ones where they're open to learning. Right. A lot of this is new and progress is happening like super fast. So you want a team that is always going to be ahead of the game and learning the new tools and embracing these new technologies. And then alignment, it's so important. You want to get people, I always tell my team this, there's the scene in Finding Nemo, the Disney movie, where Nemo and all the fish, they're all swimming in different directions and they're trapped in a net and they can't go anywhere until they all align and they start swimming in the same direction, and that's when they set themselves free, right? And I love this scene because you can have the smartest people around the table, but if everybody's swimming in their own direction, you won't really go anywhere. You need to align people.
So it becomes the leader's responsibility to get this motivation to the direction going all the way down to the grassroots level.
Exactly.
Okay. And the interesting part is the organizational structure. What's its contribution to the success?
Yeah, something Professor Karim Lakhani said in one of his classes really struck with me. He said, he said, you look at the org structure of a company and you will know if they're AI driven or not.
Okay.
So if you have, if you don't, for example, have a chief data officer or a chief AI officer, if you don't see AI implemented across AI titles or data analytic titles implemented across the organization, that tells you that the company's not really serious about it.
Okay.
So I think it's important that, the org structure really matters, and you want it to reflect your commitment to AI.
Thank you very much. And the two questions in Affectiva, when you would have gone through all the ups and downs of it. So what was the two top things from the innovation success in terms of progression versus taking this to the next level and move the needle?
I think the biggest thing we implemented early on, and it's almost by accident, we said data is going to really be important. And so in our API and in our code base, we made sure we got access to this data, and we implemented like a data warehouse. We invested in that very early on, and data annotation tools, they didn't exist. So we invested in this machine learning pipeline, and that ended up being our moat. And when we got acquired last year, that was the main kind of IP that the company, our acquirer, wanted to get access to. So I think, again, for AI and data-driven companies, investing in this pipeline, it's kind of interesting. It's behind the scenes. It's like the plumbing, right? It's not that sexy, but it's so important, and it becomes your moat, and it becomes your competitive advantage.
Sure. And what was the contribution of project management? Because I come from the project program management background. Mm-hmm. What is the contribution of project management to your success in innovation?
Well, I'll tell you a story. In 2019, we got a round of funding from a strategic partner in the automotive industry. And so they were an equity investor in Affectiva. Okay. And but it was also a partnership. So they gave us a project to work on, and we failed on every aspect. We didn't deliver on time. It was just a mess. And that was when we hired our very first project manager and program manager.
Okay.
And this guy turned it all around. He was like, okay, this is how we're going to track the projects. Here's how we're going to track the teams. Clear milestones, clear deadlines, and it was transformative.
Established accountability, and
totally. Yeah.
That's music to my ears. That's music to my ears. Okay. Yeah. And
that's one thing I don't think AI can replace the human. Yeah.
I keep saying that any innovative initiatives, you need a project centric approach. If you take, you will be successful. So that's where I learned it very hard, and then got my PMP and everything. Thank you so much. And now turning to being a women entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur now. And what are some of your tips and guidelines for folks who are listening to it, and then say, hey, I should learn from the great leaders such as you, Doctor?
I think so I'm one of the few women in AI, right? And also women entrepreneurs in the AI space. One of my learnings is first, believe in yourself. I can't tell you the number of times in my head, I just said, oh, I can't do it. I'm going to fail. I'm too scared. So I think I had to learn to believe in myself first so that others can believe in me. So that's word of advice number one. Word of advice number two is to be in the space, be in the spaces where the decisions are being made. Insert yourself, even if you're the only woman or if you're the only minority. Just make sure that you have a voice and you use your voice to influence decision making. Yeah, and finally, it's an area I'm very passionate about, which is why I've started an early stage venture fund called AI Operators. My fund partner is a guy called Rob May, who's also in the AI space, and we're committed to investing in female founders and underrepresented minorities.
That's good. I'm sure folks who are listening to, they'll definitely note this down, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very good word of wisdom on this one. And one last question. Fail fast to succeed. I know you mentioned about testing, validation, data, and all of this. So that, what does that mean? Because a lot of people hear it differently. When they say fail fast means, I don't want to fail. I want to always succeed. Everything I should succeed. So there is always a fear of taking risks. So having been there, done that, any word of advice, please?
Yeah, so I did my postdoc at the MIT Media Lab, and they're awesome at that. They basically, the word failure does not exist in the vocabulary, but you're always taking risks and you're always learning from these experiments. It's always the mindset is you're experimenting, you're trying new things, may or may not work. If it doesn't work, you learn something and you iterate and you build on it. So I think it's a mindset. The failures are just learning along the journey.
So you have to change the mindset, you have to change the behavior, get some advice, follow experienced person and successful leaders like you. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. And this is Sri Srinivasa and for HBAP Academy. And thanks to Dr. Rana Kaliouby for her time. And again, it's been a pleasure journey for HBAP, and thanks to Professor Kadim and David Parker's professor as well. And thank you, Manian, for being our videographer today.
Thank
you
you
so much.
Thank
and
you.
wishing you good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Thank